Good evening, I'm Jeff Lyons. It is Wednesday night, May the 14th. This is the First Alert Weather Show at 9 o'clock. We stream every night at 9, also at 2:30, and soon at 9 a.m. And extra times when we have severe weather in the works. You will probably see a lot more of us tomorrow and again on Friday as severe storms move in. If you have a question or comment, you can put it on the 14 News Facebook page. You can also post in on YouTube in the comments section, and I'll be checking those at about halfway through the program tonight. Our alert day status has changed a little bit. Today we have been upgraded for Friday's risk to enhanced. Also, we've added Thursday night, tomorrow night, into our first alert weather day, as a few storms could break through a very strong atmospheric cap. If that happens, we could see some very rapidly growing thunderstorms across the area. Right now, very little happening on the radar. We had a few little sprinkles and showers out there, but that's pretty much it. As I mentioned, tomorrow we have a level 2 of 5 risk for severe weather over the tri-state, but it is conditional, meaning if the storms fail to break through warmer air aloft, or what we call a cap, we won't have any severe weather. It'll be basically an all or nothing kind of day. If a few storms do manage to punch through the cap, then they could become severe with very large hail, 2 inches in diameter or greater. That would be the worst case scenario, but again, we're thinking that is a long shot. Friday, however, not a long shot at all. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center upgraded that risk today and moved it a little bit to include virtually all of our tri-state counties in that level 3 or enhanced risk for severe storms. And what prompted this, some of the model data that I'm going to show you here in a moment, has really ramped up the potential for some higher end severe weather across the area on Friday. So we're talking about tornadoes, possibly strong ones, EF2 or stronger. We're talking about large hail, 2 inches in diameter or greater, and higher end wind gusts, which would be 75 miles per hour or greater in the storms. And the storms are likely going to line up, meaning we will have a damaging wind threat predominantly, but the other factors are in there too. Also, a bigger concern is the risk level. We're back at 30% over much of the tri-state, all the tri-state really, and you see crosshatching in there, and that's the way that we know, or that's what's indicated when we're expecting some higher end severe events. So that's a big upgrade from what we were looking at even yesterday and this morning. Part of that came from some of the machine learning or AI forecasting out of the Colorado State University program. And if you'll remember, yesterday it was signaling a similar setup here, and the Storm Prediction Center had the area outlook. Now you compare that to today's outlook, and the machine learning model still highlighting the tri-state there with the crosshatching, so higher end severe, and in the purple, so much higher risk as well. And that's why you saw that upgrade there then in the risk on Friday. So yeah, we really need to pay attention here, especially going into Friday afternoon and evening. Now, this is the latest model data that we have on the graph, which is our internal model. This one tends to do really well with timing and placement a couple days out from the event. So I'll just show you what we have here. It's really not going crazy about storms tomorrow night. And the models have really not honed in on that potential. Most of the model data that I've looked at today favored a strong cap that would stay in place. So, you know, while that is the going solution, we always have to consider the outlier, the solution that may be right that nobody else got. And so that's why you saw that elevated or level 2 risk for tomorrow. Now on Friday, it's a little more clear cut, at least in the model data. And basically what we're expecting is a line of storms to develop over Missouri and push up toward the Mississippi River around noon, and then enter into southern Illinois in the early afternoon, maybe even up to I-57 there by 2 p.m., and then working across southern Illinois here between, say, 2 and about 3 or so. One thing about this line, it'll be moving fast, and it could create widespread wind damage. So we would be looking at power outages, tree damage, and the usual impacts you would get just from straight line winds. In addition, we could see embedded tornadoes in here and large hail. And it looks like it will cover all the tri-state as it comes through. The bigger concern, at least, you know, here, we always try to kind of frame the forecast in terms of how you live and what you're doing. 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, folks are getting out of kids are getting out of school. You've got parents and family picking up, maybe heading out for the weekend and so forth. A lot of people in motion and not necessarily at home at 3 o'clock on Friday. A lot of you work. And so this could be a big deal on Friday because it will disrupt the commute, and it may disrupt that school release on Friday as well. So you need to pay particular attention if you've got kids at school or you know, need to make decisions like that. You got a couple days here and things could change, but at least as of now, this is a higher confidence forecast. This was beginning to show last night. If you watched 14 News at 10, we got those next few frames of data, which I didn't have at 9 for you, and it was depicting this scenario with a line of storms coming through. So between, say, 3, 4, 4:30 or so, that line would continue to race east here through Owensboro, Tell City, Jasper, Madisonville, and Hartford, and then potentially exit the area by 4. But wait, there's more. And the model is still generating another line of thunderstorms, this one moving in the early evening around 7 o'clock. And it too would be capable of producing severe weather. My money of the two would be on the first one for damaging wind, tornado, hail. The second one perhaps for heavy rainfall, flooding, in addition to maybe some more damaging winds in that. Remember, the first line will work over or somewhat stabilize the atmosphere, but we do have a strong cold front coming in, and so that could overcome you know, any weakening trend that we would see. The good news is that by the weekend we are clear through Saturday and Sunday, and I'm going to show you some of the other things that we look at in forecasting severe weather. While we do have a pretty strong low-level jet tomorrow afternoon, remember the atmosphere is capped, meaning we don't have access to it with storms trying to develop from the surface. So that in and of itself, not a big concern. Friday, on the other hand, when things open up, yes, we still have a low-level jet plowing through here, and that could not only enhance the thunderstorm development, but also push that line through, depending on how things eventually are lined up on Friday afternoon and evening. So that's that. The wind shear, surprisingly, and this is upper level, so 850 to 250 millibars, or about 850 would be about 9,000 feet up to about 30,000 feet. And that would be you know, where this wind shear model is looking, and it's not showing a lot of shear, interestingly. Dew points are going to be right up there in the tropical range, mid to upper 60s, so we have an ample supply of moisture for that heavy rain and fuel for the thunderstorms too, both Thursday and Friday, and lots of CAPE, as you would expect, with the temperatures climbing to near 90 and all the moisture and everything else in place, and even some higher CAPE numbers there right along the Ohio River. Let's look at the supercell index, because this is an indicator of where we would see some of these stronger thunderstorms capable of producing tornadoes, and sure enough, we see a line of it coincident with probably where that squall line will be at about that time. And the tornado risk is also elevated on Friday in particular, and over western Kentucky. At least that's where it's showing as of today. Now, this is just one model. This is the GFS, but I use this because at least it is highlighting now the areas, and that would be here in the tri-state, primarily western Kentucky or along the Ohio River, that would have that elevated tornado risk. So not exactly the kind of stuff you like to hear from me, but better to hear it now and prepare, you know, than to be surprised. So just to sum up everything, tomorrow it's a conditional threat, meaning if the storms are unable to get through that atmospheric cap, nothing's going to happen. It'll be hot and humid. Friday, though, much more favorable. As the cold front comes in, that mechanism alone should be enough to break the cap. And then we get the wind, hail, tornado threat. And as I said before, some high-end severe is possible, which would be stronger tornadoes, bigger hail, stronger winds, and perhaps even a long-lived squall line that would start out, say, in Missouri and wind up, somewhere in West Virginia or Virginia before it ends, or a derecho type scenario. For current temperatures now, we have upper 70s across the area, very muggy out there, or muggy for this time of the year. And it's not going to cool much because, as we know, moist air doesn't cool a whole lot. We hit 84 this afternoon. I believe that was our forecast high. And we dropped down to 60 this morning. So it never really cooled off that much. And that means this week has been the warmest so far for the month of May, with those mid-80s in there, and possibly our first 90 of the year coming up tomorrow. The record high for tomorrow is 92. I don't think we'll hit the record, but we're going to be close. So we're saying near record heat for tomorrow. Other stats there we're familiar with. Rainfall is very ample, above normal here for this time of the year, for the year. Tomorrow then, as we said, temperatures moving right on up. There is a cluster of severe weather or severe thunderstorms out over western Nebraska now. But again, with the capping inversion setting up here over the eastern part of that of the area here, so the tri-state, basically east of those storms, I don't expect to see anything really initiating here. North, it's a different story. Up around Chicago, we could see some stronger storms, and it's depicting, the models are depicting a squall line developing there on Thursday night. And then Friday morning, we may have some storms along the Tennessee-Kentucky border, more toward Bowling Green and Nashville than the tri-state. And then by late morning, watch over here in Missouri, you see this line coming together and then marching to the east. There's 330 crossing the tri-state and then continuing to the east, not quite intact. And there has been some talk, will we see derecho on Friday? And of course, that is really hard to say whether it will qualify, and I'll explain that in just a second. But in either case, call it what you will, widespread and long-lived wind damage is certainly possible on Friday before we clear out over the weekend. Over the next 7 days, then, we get a break over the weekend and cooler temperatures. Next week, we have more thunderstorms possible there, beginning Monday and also on Tuesday and Wednesday. On the GFS model, same idea here with drying out over the weekend and then more active weather returning for the first part of next week, all the way through Wednesday. And while this average rainfall here of 1.6 may not be quite the right message here, because we could have some very heavy rain under some of the storms. The good thing, I guess, if there is one about squall lines, especially ones that are moving rapidly, they don't have a lot of time to put down, soaking kind of rain. We could see some spotty flash flooding out there, which is typical with thunderstorms anyway, especially with the air being as moist as we're expecting. And again, the European model also bringing some storms through Friday night, dry for the weekend, and then more active weather returning Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week. So there's some agreement there between the two models going through the weekend and next week. The European now has juiced up a little more to a couple of inches of rainfall between now and next Wednesday. Our pressure fluctuations will be biggest here on Friday with the passage of those squall lines, and then the pressure will gradually climb through the weekend. So down to 69 degrees tonight. It'll be humid and warm out there, and then 91, hot and humid. We're going to put that thunderstorm chance at about 20 to 30%. Again, conditional, and there's a good chance we won't see any thunderstorms tomorrow during the day. Later in the night, if the cap weakens a little bit, then yes, it'll be possible. But Friday is definitely the day to worry about and to watch as we finish out the week. So that's basically short term. Longer term, we should get that temperature back to normal up through Memorial Day weekend. And right now it's looking wetter than normal too, up through the 24th. That, of course, includes the rain that we're going to pick up in the next couple of days and early next week. Our pet pick tonight, this is a reprise. I brought this one back because I think this forecast stinks. So We have a skunk. That is a skunk, folks, from Haley Phipps. That is Bodie, the cute skunk eating a string bean, it looks like, I think, or asparagus. Maybe this is kind of a snooty skunk eating high on the hog there. All right, let me check your questions. And as we do that, there we go. So let's see. We'll just work down the stack here. Craig McFadden says, happy Wednesday. Well, happy Wednesday to you too, Craig. LaKenya Everhart's on. Katie Williams, happy Wednesday. Yeah, it's not my birthday yet. Let's not rush things. Let's see. Jeff Miller says, good evening. Lenny Howard's out there too. Thanks for watching, Lenny. Cheyenne Hammonds, is there anything that could help lower the risk for Friday? I suppose a couple things could happen. One would be if the cap held even through the passage of the cold front, unlikely but not impossible, then that would suppress thunderstorm development. Or if things slowed down and it occurred later in the day, that could also mitigate the risk. Remember, you kind of peak with your energy, at least as far as Cape is concerned, in the afternoon when it's hot. And these storms that we're looking at are a little different from what we had back in April. Those were dynamically driven, intense low pressures, windy conditions leading up to. This isn't that way. This is just going to be good old-fashioned hot, humid air, and then a cold front interacting with that and producing severe. So I hope that answered your question. Debbie Mark says hello. Hey, Debbie. Glad to have you with us tonight. Let's see. J.D. Rapp, will there be an upgrade to moderate risk on Friday? Well, of course, that's impossible to say. I don't really try to predict what the Storm Prediction Center will do anymore. They are, after all, the experts on this sort of thing. I would say anything is possible. You may see a portion of the enhanced risk elevated if the conditions warrant. We should have a better idea tomorrow. So James Garrison, afternoon storm continuing overnight. I don't think the severe will continue overnight. It's possible we could have rain lingering past midnight on Friday night, but I think the worst part of the storms will happen mainly during daylight hours. Anthony Dobby, will there be a risk of derecho with round 1 in the early afternoon? Many of the posts indicated a derecho event occurring. Yeah, I know some of the posts. I know Ohio Valley Weather was talking up derecho and using the Storm Prediction Center derecho product as the sourcing. And yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible. One thing about a derecho, and I'm going to show you that here in a minute, there are very specific definitions for one, at least that the Weather Service uses. One is it has to be at least 240 miles in length that it stays together. 2 is that you have to have 58 mile per hour or greater winds along most of the path. And 3 is that you need to have nearly continuous wind damage reports along the path. So, you know, if it comes up and only goes 200 miles, then are we going to feel like we're rooked and didn't get a derecho? No. The derecho designation really only implies the length that it's on the ground and that it is affecting, right? And the strength, of course, the magnitude. Whereas a squall line, and we get a ton of those around here, that can be, equally hazardous. Even if it's not a derecho, it will be derecho-like in that there will be widespread damaging winds and so forth. Okay, so don't get too hung up on the derecho thing. I mean, I prefer a squall line or a convective complex kind of scenario. They're basically the same in terms of impact on you. If your big tree blows down in your yard, you don't really care if the thing then went 245 miles and was a derecho. All you care about is the tree fell in your yard. You know what I mean? So, and nothing against calling it that. It's just that, there are and there aren't based on the old definition. Okay. Will it get bad Friday in Owensboro? I know they're having Friday after 5. There's so much going on outdoors Friday night, and that's why we're trying to, keep people very alert and talking this up for Friday, because the afternoon and evening will be could be dangerous to be out and about without a sheltering plan in place. Let's see, school is I know, school's going to Holiday World Friday. Hopefully they will cancel for safety. Allie Alderson. Yeah, and you know, I mean, decision makers at the school systems, they're involved in the same conference calls that we are here at the station. And the Weather Service is very good about putting out what they call a DSS packet, or a decision support services. And this is for EMA directors, school districts, anybody that is managing other people or is in charge of safety of other people can get this packet, and we get this through our internal Slack channel. And it outlines timing, impacts, and so forth. The same thing I do here. It's just sort of a straight line to the Weather Service. But yeah, Holiday World trip on Friday, pretty iffy at this point. And Holiday World has protocols for severe weather too. So, you know, if the trip goes, because, you know, these storms may not move in until later in the afternoon, you could get your Holiday World in. But that's a decision for the schools to make based on the information that we have. And today the information is showing pretty good chance of widespread severe weather on Friday sweeping through during the afternoon. Let's see, Katie Williams, thanks for all we do. Well, that's what we do. You know, we're here, and we've got so many great ways now to reach folks. In addition to television, you know, this is one, and you can ask questions and stuff, which is really kind of my favorite thing here. James Garrison, the afternoon show, so that'd be Michael Feckus, said it would all be during the evening into the night, so we're sure it's during the day. Well, yeah, we're not thinking an overnight severe event. And Michael and Arden and I talked about that this afternoon. We're thinking most of the severe portion of it will be during daylight hours, so between midnight and 8, 9 o'clock, okay? I mean, technically that would be a little after dark, but not like 2 in the morning. You know what I mean? So that's what we're looking at today, based on the models today. And again, that could change if things slow down or speed up. Aaron Russ's son's birthday is 7. Well, happy birthday, Cooper. All right, that's a big one. Lucas Jones, do I think Livermore will get the bad part on Friday? Yes, I think everybody in the tri-state is at risk for some severe weather on Friday. Jeanette Rice, I was in Poseyville, yeah, yesterday at North Elementary School. Okay, I think I got all the questions handled there. Let me check our YouTubers over here, see if we have any additional concerns coming in. I see a skunk behind me, so that's the right one. What time will it hit Illinois tomorrow? We're thinking early afternoon, between noon and 3 to 4 on Friday. Okay, all this I've been talking about is Friday. Tomorrow, you know, other than an outside chance we would get a storm that would break through the cap, it should be fine. When is our first 90 normally? Typically around the 1st of June. So we're not that early on our first 90. But yeah, usually I think it's the 30th of May or something like that. So anyhow, let's go to Science Corner here for a minute, and I think Michael explained this afternoon, but I'll do it again here this evening. We've talked a lot about this cap idea, the cap inhibiting thunderstorm growth, and all that is warm air, a layer of warm air above slightly cooler air at the surface. Now, we told you that our forecast high for tomorrow is 92 or 90, so it's going to be hot anyway, but just off the surface there, we would still have slightly warmer air, and that creates what we call an inversion. And so when a parcel of air tries to lift, it can't get past that and access the cold air here for condensation and the wind shear and all the things going on up here. And so nothing happens. We may see some clouds, but that's about it. So the things that will break the cap include if you can warm enough down here, or you get some kind of mechanical thing to break the cap, and that would be a cold front lifting the warm air through the cap and then allowing it to bellow up into the cold air, and then you get this explosive growth of thunderstorms, and with that very cold air aloft, hail would be the big concern, although the downdrafts could also produce damaging winds. As I mentioned before, we're expecting a squall line with this out ahead of a cold front. Squall lines typically work together in a way, or work as a unit, and so you get a damaging wind threat. If you start getting breaks in this line, then sometimes you can get tornadoes, or occasionally you will have thunderstorms that fire ahead of the line, and those are called discrete cells, and those usually have the highest probability of producing a tornado. Now, to be considered a derecho, it has to travel, this is from the National Weather Service, and this is the criterion they use. It must travel at least 240 miles. You need 58-mile-per-hour winds along the path almost continuously, and continuous damage reports across the path. So typically, derechos are identified after the fact. We go into it forecasting and messaging that is a squall line or line of storms, and then after the dust settles, oftentimes in the verification process, they'll go back and look at the radar and so forth and determine if it met those criterion, and if so, then you've got a bona fide derecho. And discrete supercells, as I mentioned, are ones that break away from that line or form ahead of it, and they usually have the better odds of rotating and causing a tornado. And there have been some famous derechos recently. Probably the most recent one that many of you would remember happened during the pandemic year there, 2020, in August. Started out here in Nebraska, and it went all the way across Iowa, northern Illinois, northern Indiana, and continued into the night. I think it was on the radars there, let's see, 8 a.m., yeah, at least 12 to 14 hours, and maybe a little bit more than that. Really, really impressive event, and very damaging too. Comparable damage to, you know, like hurricane damage. It was so widespread across the area, and that's really the issue when you talk about squall lines, is that everybody gets it, and then the power outages and all that tend to be worse because you have many more people, much more infrastructure that are affected. Okay, so that's pretty much all I have for you this evening. We will get a little bit of new data here before the 10 o'clock news, and I'll have that for you at 10 over on TV. And then tomorrow our plan is, you know, the same thing. We'll have our normal streaming shows here. If we start getting storms or severe weather, we will ramp up then obviously the coverage on TV, but you'll be able to get that on streaming. And the same goes for Friday. If we wind up in continuous coverage, as always, we will have it for you here on streaming. So however you're getting me tonight on the stream, you'll be able to watch our wall-to-wall coverage if it comes to that on Friday. And I think it probably will at some point, and maybe several points, on Friday afternoon and evening. And our teams here will have you covered with the information you need. So what do you need to do? Well, I know a lot of you have storm anxiety, and this kind of stuff freaks you out. And rightfully so. It's scary stuff sometimes. Have your plan, and especially if you got a lot of moving parts in your family, you know, people scattered, kids at school or wherever they are, just make sure you have an idea, you know, how to contact people and communicate and have a plan. You know, if the power goes off, we're going to go here. You know, if there's severe weather, this is my safe spot, and so on and so on. And then when the warnings come, and if we do get the severe weather, you've got the plan, you know what to do, and we'll be walking you through it here on TV and on streaming, showing you where the storms are and where they're headed. So, you know, if we all work together, we'll all get out of it just fine. You know, there may be some disruption out there, but, you know, your safety is pretty good if you just follow the basic plan, all right? So anyway, think about that. We will see you on 14 News at 10, and of course I'll be back here tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. In the meantime, stay safe, and thanks for watching.